Hey guys, it's Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. It's a little past 3 o'clock. Just woke up from a nap and was feeling like I'd record a video. So today I wanted to talk about my business in high school and what I learned from that experience now, since it's been a few years and I've had time to digest and reflect. So for those of you who don't know, I started a business in high school. It was an outdoor services business. Actually, let me start before that. When I was probably in 6th or 7th grade, I first came across the idea or the concept of stocks and trading stocks and money really in general. And it really appealed to me right away. I was at an age where I was kind of sick of being treated like a child, and I wanted to be treated as an adult, or at least not treated like a child. I wanted a seat at the adults' table, figuratively speaking. I wanted respect, especially from adults. So I thought a great way to get that respect was through being this kid that knew a bunch about stocks or made a bunch of money, or both, or something along that line. So I was drawn in right away, and I tried to talk to my dad. I tried to talk to my grandpa about stocks. My friend in grade school or middle school, who was the only kid I knew that knew anything about stocks, and we tried to talk. Nobody, or we didn't know anything, and I tried to understand stocks from my dad and grandpa, and didn't feel like I was understanding it whatsoever. Felt so confused, but just kept pushing. So I took a personal finance class as soon as I could, and that was in 7th grade, surprisingly. Maybe it's called Basics of Finance or something like that. Learned a lot from that class, and I think for my birthday that year, this would be 7th grade, my dad got me this book called The Motley Fool's Teen's Guide to Investing. And I didn't read it for a long time. I put it on the shelf. Thought it was cool, but I just hadn't read a book in years, and never read a non-fiction book, really. Never even heard of self-development or anything like that. So that sat on a shelf. Actually, it was under my bed for about 2 years, and fast forward to freshman year, spring, and I picked that book up. Felt motivated to read it. I'd been watching a lot of Tai Lopez and other guru types, self-improvement, money types on YouTube, and was like, I'm gonna get rich here. So I picked up that book. I was waking up at 5:30 or 5 o'clock on school days, going outside, pitch black, go for a walk, come back in. I would sit in our locker room because I was living at school and read that book, and it was crack. It was so addicting. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was like, I am on to something here. This is awesome. That was when I first came across the concept of compound interest, and being like 14 probably, and just looking at my life like, wow, I could be 100. I could live to 100, and I'm 14 right now. So if I invest any amount of money right now, I will be so unbelievably rich when I'm old, or at some point. No, I wouldn't look at it when I'm old. I would say I have the potential, or I will at some point, be extremely rich, and that was so motivating to me. So part of that book was finding ways to generate income, and they gave a lot of examples about making deals with your parents for doing well in school or chores or part-time jobs, stuff like that. They did emphasize school. It wasn't a book that was telling you to quit, drop out of school and go get rich. No, this was a conservative, it was a responsible book to give your kids. So I started experimenting, and it just so turns out that I lived at a lake. We lived on a lake and we had a beach, and everyone kind of had a lot of people in the neighborhood had four-wheelers, ATVs, Harrows, to try to manage the beach because weeds would come up on the beaches and the beaches would just look really trashy. You've got these nice houses, well taken care of yards, and then you got a beach that looks like just, yeah, trashy, and cheap. And these people, a lot of these people are older, or they're busy, or both. So people try to take care of the weeds, but if you don't stay on top of it, they get out of hand. And so most people ended up maybe taking care of it for a few months their first year, maybe their first year or two, and then they're like, this is too much. And that's how we were. We always had weeds all over our beach. So yeah, we had a harrow, and that's all we did. We just dragged the beach, but the place you couldn't reach, a lot of weeds grow up, and it was always a pain. So I thought, yeah, I could take care of this, and get some type of weekly allowance. I think I made a deal with my dad. It was a pretty generous deal, but something like $50 a week to take care of the beach, and that was incredible. $50 a week at that age was incredible. I was just like running those numbers through compound interest calculators, like, yeah, this is awesome. So I'm doing that, and eventually, towards the end of the summer, our next door neighbor asks me to do it for his beach, and I take care of that beach so well. It was just a one-time thing, but he ended up paying me $100, and I remember that day so well, and I remember the feeling I got when he handed me that bill, that $100 bill, and it was a great feeling, and that got me thinking, that got my wheels turning, like, wow, my next door neighbor needed this. I mean, there's 200 other people in this neighborhood. Surely there's other people that want to have their beach done. So I started a campaign, and I sent out an email to the community, the neighborhood email, so everyone gets their email. And I remember this day too, and I remember where I was and the feeling I had, where I sent the email, and then the next day I checked right after school, ran to the computer lab, logged on, and I see 7 emails, all with, take care of our beach. We'd love to hire you. And I was just ecstatic. I was hopped on the calculator right away. If I took care of a beach, I was charging them $25 a job. There was 12 weeks in the summer. That's $300 per client. I just got 7. That's over $2,000 in the summer. And again, like, it was such a great time in life where $2,000 in the summer was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And I knew I could grow it more than that too, because one email, how many people didn't even check their email? How many people didn't even get the email? So I start doing the beaches, those 7, plus mine and my neighbors, and I start going door to door with flyers. Don't continue that very long because, yeah, cold sailing in person, cold calls, door-to-door sales is not easy, especially as a 14-year-old where I'm pretty fragile. Like, I rejection's hard to take, and I'm scared going up to every door. So I do that for a bit, and then I'm like, okay, I don't need to do this. I'm just gonna tape a flyer on everyone's door. So I tape a flyer on everyone's door. That gets me, I don't even know, a lot more clients. And now while I'm out doing beaches regularly, next door neighbors see, wow, our neighbor's beach looks great. Like, let's talk to this guy. And I charge a great price, and you weren't going to find someone to do it cheaper, and you weren't going to find someone to do it better, because I put everything I had into that. I was going to sacrifice more than anyone else, and I was just so grateful for everyone that gave me an opportunity. So yeah, I continue very similarly to that for the next summer. And I remember my sophomore year, I went from, I don't know, a few $1,000s that freshman year to then the next year making 25,000. And that was just incredible. I felt on top of the world, to say the least. Most people around me weren't working, weren't making any money. And now I was making almost as much as teachers, and I was working 3 months of the year, maybe 4. Fast forward another year, the next year, start expanding to other lakes. I've got a pickup and a trailer now. Still charging the same price, $25, and a way I increased the value I could get per client was by extending the weeks. So that junior year, I probably worked 5.5 months. So each client was worth a lot more, and I had a lot more clients. So that year, I made something like 55,000 junior year, and I guess this is revenue. And I had one guy working with me. Pong, if you're ever watching, like, yeah, I couldn't have done it without him. Couldn't have done it without you. Like, matched my work ethic for sure. And I tried to hire a lot of people, but that one just clicked. Me and Pong worked a lot. So that's not all my money. He made a chunk of that. And there's also there were some expenses, but there were very few. Like, the profit margins were probably 98%. I was paying for gas, and occasionally I have to buy a new like hoe or rake. But at that point, it was so high profit. It was revenue was basically profit. And yeah, that junior year was a huge year. It was also the year of COVID, so we had more time, less school. School was online that spring, so why not work more? And that's where I started just feeling, I was feeling just incredible the whole time. I wasn't starting, it was like a accumulation of those 3 years building where I just felt unstoppable. And I come into junior year and ace my classes. I'm doing great. Ready. I'm not working, so I'm like, I'll focus everything on school, but once work season starts, that'll be my focus again. Well, I guess, yeah, so actually rewind. That year I made 55,000. That was my junior summer, so I'm coming into senior year feeling on top of the world, and I just keep taking on more. I say yes to cross country. I say yes to living at school, boarding at school. I take about the maximum credit hours. I got, my days are packed, and I'm working from the minute I leave school on Friday to the minute I return on Sunday evening or Monday morning. I'm working that whole time, and it doesn't take long for me to absolutely burn out. Um, Working so hard, taking on just more and more and more, and never saying no. I had no free time, and these weren't easy tasks. These were all difficult. You got to put energy into it, so my energy is drained. And really, I just kept saying yeah because I wanted just to keep impressing people. It was all about perception of, wow, like I can do anything. Like, look at me, kind of. And that came back to bite me really bad. So I burn out hard very quickly into my fall semester of my senior year, and I'm depressed for the first time in my life. No energy or very little energy, bad habits, um, and really like questioning like a lot. Finding it hard to have any reason to do anything, and a vicious cycle of guilt, self guilt, and shame about quitting, not following through on these commitments I made. And it took me many months to recover from that. Yeah, probably not until almost January. So from October, November, December, I was down in the dumps for the first time. So yeah, that was rough. And I start picking momentum back up again towards the spring and summer. Come out vicious with the business again, and continue to grow it. Continue to grow it so much that by the 4th of July week, I've maxed it. With the model I was running and the crew, one crew, it was maxed. We had endless work. There was no end of the week because there was always more to do. And I was afraid of saying no and letting people down, which ended up doing exactly what I was afraid of anyway. But yeah, I got to this point where we've got hundreds of people on the backlog, and these are all basically weekly clients. So completely full schedule. Felt like I was trapped, and the days were so monotonous. Wake up, the crack of dawn, right when the sun's coming up, work all day on beaches, go to sleep, wake up, crack of dawn, work all day on beaches, go to sleep, rinse, repeat. And when you can't see the end to that, that becomes very scary and depressing. And I felt like that I had nothing, I couldn't do anything. I felt that was what I had to do, and there was nothing, no alternatives. So there we go. That's how you burn out again. And I learned a lot in that moment, or from that experience now. But I guess let me finish that story. So it's 4th of July. We got backlog forever. I've saved up about $55,000 in just like pure liquid assets. Like I've got $55,000. I'm not going to college. So I was going through, it felt like hell. And I was like, for what? I'm not going to make that much more money. But at the same time, I had all these clients, 150, 250 clients that want their beach done. And I'm the only one offering this service, really. There's maybe one or two other people doing their own beach. Maybe a neighbor's beach. There's definitely some people that are doing their own beach, but no one was offering it as a business. So I was the guy, and I didn't want to leave 150, 250 people high and dry with, oh, we have to take care of the beach ourselves now, or it's going to look like shit. So I start trying to dish it off to someone. I try to sell it. I start searching for someone to buy it because I felt I can't do this anymore. Definitely a rough transition, but it did transition. Didn't get a great deal. Um, Sold the assets. But I mean, to be fair, it's not really a sellable business. It wasn't really a business. That's a lesson I learned. Businesses are, what I was doing was more of a self-employed job, because I was servicing all the clients, and I was making a high wage, but that's not what the business is worth, because someone that wants to buy a business doesn't want to service it. They don't have time for that. So, yeah, looking back, I would have definitely started different if I would have known what the difference between being self-employed and being a business was, and I would have tried to do almost no work as soon as possible and just hired, so I could focus on expansion and hiring and scaling, which yeah, I couldn't have known that though at the time. So I'm not blaming myself. That's definitely something I learned, is there's a big difference between self-employment. You can make a lot of money as a self-employed person, but if you are in an integral part of the business, you can't sell that, or it's really hard to sell it. So luckily I transitioned it though, and these clients are still being serviced. Yeah. So I guess, what did I learn from this experience? There's a lot of things I learned. I guess I can start with what I thought I learned at the beginning. So after I'm burning out, here's what came to mind. Okay, I don't want to ever work in manual labor again. I'm done being paid for my physical labor. I want to be paid for my strategy, my mental work. That was one thing I was thinking. Another thing I was thinking was, I don't want to build a business where I have to hire people that have to, or low skill labor. I don't want to hire low skill labor, because it's so hard to find hardworking people, low skill, and the turnover rate is going to be extremely high. So you hire someone, they're like, this is too much this isn't worth it. I quit. And then you got to find another person. You got to find another person. So it's going to be constantly turning over. So those were two things I felt like I learned right at the beginning. Another thing I learned was, my next business, I wanted to build something where it wasn't location based. So I wanted to be able to run my business from anywhere in the world, so I could have location freedom. So jobs on the internet really started to appeal to me. I didn't want to live in Omaha my whole life, and I don't really want to live anywhere in one place my whole life. I want to be able to have the freedom to get up and go whenever I want. But I think, looking back, the biggest thing I've learned was that a lot of the things I thought I learned were bullshit. I thought the problems I ran into, were business problems, but in reality, they were personal problems manifesting in my business. They were mostly mindset issues of, like, I have to do this, I can or can't do this, I can't do this, or I have to do this. None of that's true though. I could have turned that business into anything. Yeah, anything. I could still be running it remotely. Location freedom. I could have had location freedom. I could have found great employees. I could have kept scaling it. Yeah. So basically, I got trapped in my own ways of thinking, and they weren't business problems, they were personal problems. So that's probably the biggest thing I take away. To stay mentally flexible and self-aware and adaptable. But yeah, I guess from this whole experience, I've come away with a lot more clarity about what I do want, and I want a business that is extremely scalable. I've realized that the things that bring me the most growth or bring me the most happiness and fulfillment is growth and rapid growth. And I can really achieve growth like what I want in business. Business is so scalable. So I want to be able to build a business. I want to be the owner. I want nothing holding me back from scaling. No jobs where you get a few percent bonus here, a few percent bonus there. We'll give you a few percent raise every year. But if you really want to double your income, triple your income, you're going to have to do this your whole life. I want to be in business where, yeah, I 10x my income from where I started. Now I'm tripling my income every year, and there's no limit. That's something that brings me so much, so much motivation and inspiration and drive and ambition and happiness. So scalability, that's something I want. I want location freedom. And though, yeah, it is a mindset thing, there are business models that are more scalable than others. There are business models that are more conducive to location freedom than others. So I get a fresh start here, and I think I've found everything I've been looking for in a business and what I'm working on now, and more to come on that. I've been recording little bits and pieces of it here, checkpoints and stuff like that, big moments, even though they're not the biggest moments yet, but I've been trying to compile those and document that journey, because I would love to build a successful business and be able to go back and watch where I started from in the journey along the way. I just think that sounds so cool, and never in history have you been able to do that. So I want to take advantage of that opportunity. But yeah, I guess one other thing I've learned that I've touched upon already is that I have got to prioritize my time and really get clear on my values, which I've been working on a lot, so that I can say no to almost everything except for what's most valuable to me. And that's where I spend my time. Not everything is equal value, not to me, not to any individual. So if I just keep saying yes and yes and yes to more things, eventually I end up with nothing. I much rather identify what really brings me joy and what really brings me happiness and put almost all my time into that thing and say no to everything else. And yeah. I guess that's pretty much most of it. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll make another video on this, more refined and scripted, but currently I just kind of want to pick up the camera and talk about whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you soon, probably.